Welcome to the first episode of the QC Step podcast in 2015. My name is Corey Finneran, and I have something completely different for you this week. In December, I met with and interviewed Kirk Marske from Career Cruising Quad Cities. And in this discussion, Kirk explains what career cruising is and how you can use it in your job search. You'll learn how to access local resources and connect with businesses right here in the Quad Cities. You'll learn how to use career cruising for job shadows and company tours, and you'll learn how career cruising provides you with the tools to develop a portfolio and to build your resume. If you're not familiar with career cruising and what it offers, this episode has a lot of information that will be useful to you. This is a longer interview, so we're going to get right to it, and here it is. Well, I'm here at Junior Achievement, and I'm meeting with Kirk Marske, and he's going to talk with us today about Career Cruising Quad Cities. So, Kirk, thanks for taking time out of your day to talk with us.
Sure, thanks for having me on.
So, career cruising is something that I think a lot of students, teachers, and parents are probably they've heard of, I believe that most schools on the Illinois side of the Quad Cities have access to this, right?
Yeah, overall we serve about 50 different schools in the area. It's middle schools and high schools. A lot of schools in Rock Island County, a lot of schools in Henry County. We have one school in each of Stark, Whiteside, and Mercer County. And now we are actually in Scott County as well. So we have 10 schools, I guess it is, in Davenport. And then Pleasant Valley High School and Junior High also use the program. So quite a few schools use the program.
Okay, so if anybody that's watching this isn't familiar with career cruising, can you kind of explain what career cruising is?
Sure. Well, it's a web-based career exploration program, and what we offer is some software where students can go online and do a lot of career exploration online. So there's career profiles in there. There's an education section that will take them to profiles for colleges and universities. There's a financial aid section, and there's also an employment section where they can learn about how to put a resume together, how to write a cover letter, a lot of things that you cover on your website to help the students and parents that use your website as well. And then there's also some local resources that we put in there, and that's what makes our program unique, is the opportunity for students to connect with employers and professionals that work here in the Quad Cities.
Okay, so you talk about using that part of career cruising to connect with employers. Mm-hmm. What exactly do you mean by that?
Well, employers or an individual volunteer, however they want to do it, they can provide a company profile is one way that they can participate, for example. So a company profile would be a summary of that company, where they're located, what their website is, what types of careers they hire for their company. And within their profile, actually, if they list all the careers that they have, a student would click on those links, and then they could go learn more about those careers from our database.
So that's information that businesses put up there. So we know that it's accurate.
Yeah, they sign up to do it, and a lot of the information comes from an existing website that they might have, but we sort of summarize it for them. Another neat feature that we have with the company profiles is they can put videos in there. They can do up to 6 videos. And what's nice about that is a lot of companies have a video tour of their facilities, or they interview interns about their experience at that company. And so the companies can profile their videos that they make. And a lot of companies put their videos on YouTube. Well, the problem is a lot of schools can't access that because of the filtering. So what we actually do with the career cruising software is we take the videos off of YouTube and put them in our system so that the schools can access approved videos that are not directly on YouTube. They're actually in our system. So it actually helps the companies out because it increases their reach. They can now reach students and educators that otherwise couldn't maybe reach their videos. So that's a nice feature. The other way that people can participate is by being an online career coach. And those are volunteers that sign up to represent their career that they work in. Sometimes they represent more than one, maybe a previous career, or maybe their job overlaps a couple of different careers. But what that does is it gives students a chance to submit questions about that career. So a student might want to know what's their favorite part of the job, what's their least favorite part of the job, what kind of classes should I be taking for this? What's a good part-time job for that? So there's quite a variety of questions that they ask. But it's a way for a student who's interested in a particular career to start a dialogue with somebody right here in the Quad Cities that's already working in that career.
Right.
And then the other way is the work-based learning activities are the other thing that we offer. So it's things like job shadows, company tours. A company might have somebody that goes out to talk at a career fair or in the classroom. Internships, those are all different activities that we offer.
I'm going to go back and touch on a few things that you talked about. First, let's go back to the profiles that the businesses have. One thing, and I think that this is probably part of it, is a lot of our students live outside the immediate Quad Cities. We have some Alwood and Mercer County High School, Rock Ridge High School, Sherrard, some schools like that, Riverdale. And so this is really kind of an interesting way for, you mentioned those videos on those company profiles. That's a kind of a cool way to be able to do a job shadow in a way without having to find transportation and everything to do something like that, or for a field trip. It would be harder to get it's getting tougher for classes to get out of the building and stuff like that. So that's really neat that you kind of bring that into the classroom, that you can still get that information of what the business does, and then what the individual some of the individual positions are like, and to have those videos, that's really that's a really good feature. Yeah,
and the other thing, when students are doing their exploration, they can save information to their plan. We call it the plan, or that's their portfolio. And actually, the educators can go in and see what information is being saved by the students. So if a teacher wanted to bring in a guest speaker to talk about a career, that teacher could actually go in the system and see what careers their students are interested in, and then match up a speaker with that. Or if they're planning an informational career fair at their school, I know that there's some counselors that do that. They'll go into the system, see what careers are saved, and then match up speakers. And a lot of times we have speakers in our system that can come in, or they'll find their own. But it's a way to get a little insight into what the students are interested in.
Right. And then going back to the career coach thing. So to kind of rehash it, I guess. So these are people that are working in specific industries in the Quad Cities, in our area, and students can submit questions to them about those careers. And so if students have a profile, are those messages sent back to them through there? Is it through email?
It's all through the system.
Okay.
So we always have the students' safety in mind. So all the volunteers that are career coaches, we do a background check on them when they sign up. But we also have the messages go through the system. So the messages are not in real time or a chat situation or an email. So for the volunteers side of things, it's not like they have to be on call to just answer questions in real time. They are sent an email that lets them know that they've been asked a question, and then they can reply to that. And then when they respond to it and give the student an answer, the question and the answer are posted on a message board so other students can see that information. So it's a way to build up a library of information. So it's not just one student asking one-on-one questions. That actually benefits other students when that gets answered. So
right. So even if you don't have, or before you ask a question, it would maybe be a good idea to look through there and see what's been answered. But what a great way to find out. Industries are different in the Quad Cities as compared to more rural areas, compared to Chicago. And so that's a really good way to get information on the jobs that are actually in our area that you might be interested in working. So
right. And we talk about, when I do an interview like I'm doing today with you, we talk about the students' use of it and how the parents get involved and how the educators use it. But the other side of it is the business side and what they benefit from. And really the idea behind our program is for employers to have an opportunity to build their workforce right here in the Quad Cities, because you have a lot of employers, and it doesn't matter the size of the company. A lot of times they're hiring from somewhere else, and there's a lot of expense with that, a lot of time and effort to bring people in from other places. And we want to give our local employers an opportunity to develop their own workforce from people who are already here in the Quad Cities.
Yeah, what a great thing. Okay, so I believe you mentioned in passing the resume thing. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, we have a feature called Build My Resume, and it's part of the plan. So when a student signs up for our program, which it's free for the students to use it through their school, there's no cost to do it. They just have to sign up. And then what that does is it gives them what's called a plan or a portfolio. So as I mentioned, while they're doing their research, they can save. There's a button that comes up that says Save to My Plan. Mm-hmm. So that might be a career profile, it might be a scholarship, it might be a college profile, any of those things. So they save that to their plan, and then they can access that section of the website, I guess you would say, where they can see everything that they've saved. Now, in addition to that, there's a section where they can add information about activities that they're involved in, or maybe they volunteer somewhere, maybe they've won some awards, those kinds of things. So they can input all that information to keep track of things that they've done in high school. And if they want to build a resume, all they do is click a button that allows them to designate the information they want on that resume from the information from their plan. Mm-hmm. So it just downloads it into a formatted resume that they can either print out or they can email it to somebody through our system.
So a student they can put their information in and they don't have to do any of the formatting in the document.
Right. The example I usually use, and I know you've talked about the importance of volunteering as a high school student, and what that might mean for when you apply for a scholarship or apply for college or apply for a job. If you don't have any work experience, it's a good idea to do some volunteering, and then that way when you apply for these things, you have something to point to. Well, if a student is a freshman and they have volunteered somewhere, let's say they volunteered at the animal shelter, they can document that very accurately, the date and time, what they did, and then maybe they forget about it until they're a junior when they need that information. But it's documented in there, and then they can refer to that later. So they can, if they take the time to fill out some of those categories in that section, then it's helpful later.
Right.
The other thing they can do if they have a research paper, or maybe they have a poem or some other kind of writing sample, they can save that into Career Cruising Quad Cities too. They just upload it into there. And another nice feature about the resume, Build My Resume feature, is that when a student graduates from high school, they don't automatically lose their Career Cruising Quad Cities access. They can keep their login information for several years after that. And every counselor, I'm sure you've had this, where students move on and give you a call later and they want to know if you still have that resume that you help them build, and usually the answer is no, because you just don't have the capacity to hold on to all the students' information. So with Career Cruising Quad Cities, that actually, they don't lose that information when they graduate. So.
Right. So I'm going to kind of summarize what Kirk's talking about here. So what you can do through Career Cruising and through your profile on there is you can keep your information as you accumulate it, I guess, you know. So if you do a volunteer work or you do some sort of work experience, you can put that in there. And even if you're not looking for a job right now, that stuff stays saved in there, so that when you do decide that you want to apply for a job and you want to turn in a resume with it, and we've talked about resumes before on the podcast, why they would be a good thing to use. And it's a way in, like you mentioned, volunteer work and activities inside, that you do at school, or extracurriculars, things like that. If you have somewhat of a blank resume to turning in or an application, turning in a resume with some of those things kind of makes it look a little bit better. And everybody applying for their first job struggles with this.
Right.
Not really having much work experience, which, as I always say, volunteer. Yeah. And it goes a long ways, because a resumes can look really blank too. Mm-hmm. And so if you haven't done any of those work experiences, if you haven't done any volunteer work, any training work, or anything like that, it's probably not a good idea to have a resume, because it's got your address on it, and that's about it, Yeah. So, but so you can use that to keep track of your stuff, keep track of your work experiences. If you're doing training work through the STEP program, enter that stuff in there while you're doing it. Mm-hmm. And then it saves it all for you. You don't have to worry about, oh, where did I write that down? Or later calling your teacher over the summer trying to figure out, what you had done and the dates and things like that. So that is a really good feature. It's a good idea to, I was going to say it's a good idea to keep track of your login information and things like that. Can you kind of explain what the login process is? You have a username and a password?
Yeah. Well, all the schools that use our program have a username and password, and any student can use that. That's information that a student or a parent could get from their counselor at the school. So anybody who attends a school that uses our program can access it that way. But what a student can do, and what we encourage them to do, is sign up for their own individual plan. And that gives them the access to save things to their plan, but that also gives them access to submit questions to the coaches and do the activities, and they would still be able to access the company profiles either way, but it puts them in, that's what lets them contact the local resources. So,
right, and really utilize it, get the most out of it, is to have your own login and everything for it.
Yeah, that's right. And when you're talking about the resume and students getting ready for their job search and the things that they can do, there is information in our employment section that covers that too. So if students have questions about how to put a resume together, aside from the tool that we have, the Build My Resume feature, how to prepare for an interview, how to do a job search, those kinds of things are in there too. So.
Okay, so it sounds like Career Cruising has a lot to offer, and it's not just it is a lot of career exploration, which is good because we need that. But it's also very usable things that you for your job search with that resume tool, and that sounds. I'm gonna check that out. It sounds really interesting.
Yeah, and they can format it so they can pick the font and what it looks like at the end. So. Or they may just take that information and put it in their own Word document or something. But when they pick what information they want to download, they can actually format it to make it look how they want it to look. So, and they can check off. It'll show all the different categories of information that they may have saved in their system, and they can pick which ones they want. So if there's certain things that don't apply or they don't want to include that in that particular resume, they don't have to include all of the information. So they can pick and choose what information they want to include with that.
Okay, interesting. So, are you able to save different versions, or?
I believe so. Yeah,
okay.
I'm not sure.
I put you on the spot.
Yeah, right. That's all right. No, but then they could also, they could send that resume to somebody right through our system. So they could just enter an email address and send it out. They can also share their plan if they want to with their parents, which I also encourage people to do, because then the parents can see what their student is saving, or maybe it's a pastor at their church or some other mentor that's in their life. They might want to send them their plan that they have, and then their decision makers in their life can help them with some guidance at home. They can use the program anywhere. They don't have to just use it at school.
Right.
So they can access it at home or another location. So
you mentioned after a student graduates, they still have access to it. How long does that access last?
I think it's 2 to 3 years.
Okay.
I mean, it could be extended beyond that too, but automatically it's just left at that they have it for a few years after they graduate. So, like I said, if they wanted to extend it beyond that, they could.
Okay.
So.
All right. Well, this is really interesting. So I'm going to have links to everything on the blog post that's right underneath this video. Before we go, though, I'm going to put you on the spot.
Okay.
We used to do what was we called it the QC Step Tip of the Week.
Okay.
It was an employment tip of the week.
All right.
We haven't done one in a couple years. We need to get back into doing it. So I'm going to put you on the spot. You you kind of talked about the benefits of volunteering, which we talk about all the time on the podcast. Anything else? You have just a general employment tip of the week? Start
early. I have a teenager at home who's a senior in high school and another one that's a sophomore, but he's been looking for a job for a while, and it takes time. It's tough. It's hard to find a job as a teenager. And you might think I'm going to get my driver's license and that following summer I'm going to go get a job. And it doesn't always work out that way. So that would be my main tip is if you feel like you're ready to start working or at least start looking, then do that then. You might be involved in a sport at school, or you maybe feel like you don't have time right then, but at least look and see what you can find, see what's out there, because you may have to take just as many hours as you can at that time and fit it into your busy schedule, so that when you're done with that sport or you're done with school for that year, you can adjust your schedule and work more hours. But it takes a lot longer, I think, than some people realize to find a good job. Yeah, if you look at there's places like Niabi Zoo or River Bandits, and both of those places have great jobs for kids. But yeah, this is the time of year where they're looking ahead to try to find good workers for the summer. So you want to keep an eye out on that. And when I go and talk to schools now, I do some orientations with students about career cruising Quad Cities, but I always refer them to your website too, because it is an excellent resource. So I think any students who are looking for a job should check out your website regularly. I know you do a good job of updating it and putting resources on there that they can use. So that would be another thing I would encourage students to do, and parents and educators, is to utilize the resources that you have on there, because I don't know of anybody else in the Quad Cities who's doing the same thing. So
we drove them all out of business.
Yeah, right.
No. Well, all right, Kirk. Well, thank you very much for talking with us about career cruising, and I am going to dig into this.
Okay.
And including in this video, there should be some screenshots of what the different things look like the resume tool and stuff and everything. So if any teachers or parents or students have questions about anything, should they contact you?
Yes.
How can they do that?
Well, the website is careercruisingquadcities.org, and we have pages set up for each of our audiences, so to speak. So there's information for students, parents, educators, and businesses. So, when a student logs into Career Cruising, they are actually on a different website than our information page. But if you go to careercruisingquadcities.org, that's where you would go to find out information, no matter what your interest is. That's also where companies or volunteers can go to sign up and start the registration process. So there's a link to the registration on there as well. So careercruisingquadcities.org.
All right. Well, Kirk, thanks very much
you.
for talking with us today, and can't wait to dig into it.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks.